All right, we're back, and it is game 1014 in the winter 2017 semester, and we are week 2, part 2 of our broadcast here at George Brown College. Game production 2, right? So that means we've just talked about a little bit about concept stuff earlier today. I want to bring to your attention a little bit about our schedule again. We're a little bit behind in terms of the concept stuff. We're supposed to cover a couple of chapters every week. Again, this will probably spread out into the next half of semester as well, because we're going to catch up, no problem, right? The only thing that I want to do is I really want to focus last week on source control and create.js. That's why I kind of brought that in first. This week we did a little bit of the stuff we were supposed to do last week. Don't worry, we're going to cover everything from a concept perspective. But what I really want to kind of point out to you, I'm going to put this up on Blackboard from a due date perspective, is you're going to have this first playable due week 4, right? So that's like in a couple weeks from now. That's a pretty big push, right? Because some of you don't even have anything right now, right? First playable means you should have at least one level with some mechanics, you know, in terms of collisions, you know, some kind of, you know, maybe if it's a scoring system, if you need that or whatever, it's got to be somewhat playable. That's what the first playable is about, right? It is not your final release, right? So that's just before, 2 weeks before, or 3 weeks before the midterm, right? That's like 2 weeks from now. That's your first playable, right? So I'm going to put it up there. It's going to be worth 10% of your final grade, 10, right? That's just the actual code base itself, right? That's what you're producing, code base, your assets, it's also going to include things like your documentation updated, because you're going to have updated documentation at that point as well, right? So all those things going to be a little package you're going to deliver by that week 4. That's why you need all those people on your team, right? At the same time, week 4, there's going to be a portion of the class that we do a little presentation about what you have ready, which means you got to be ready, right? There is no, I'm not ready to present that day. Your group not ready to present that day means you've lost 5% of your final grade, all right? So that you know, it's going to be enforced, right? So you're going to come up. I don't care about everybody coming up, right, to do presentation. It should be your top guys, you know, or a girl who knows how to speak, right, really, really well. Someone has to be really good at playing the game, who loves to play your game, okay, who likes your game. If someone's not good, who comes up and plays the game, I don't want to see a demo and you don't know how to play your game and you're not able to get through your level. That's bad, right? So that's in a couple of weeks. We're sitting at week 2. This is week 4. It's not your final give, right? And it's going to be a good practice run for your final presentation, right? It's also going to figure into that participation mark for the class, 5% or it's supposed to be actually 20% or something like that for participation. Let's take a look at the evaluation, right? So participation in this class, we're 20%. That's like things like labs that I've got, you know, getting you to do, the little presentations, and your presentations are going to happen a number of times, right? Week 4, absolutely. Your alpha, week 9, that's going to happen. Week 13, it's going to happen again, right? So right there, you're looking at least 3 presentations plus your final presentation, which is worth 20, right? Lots of opportunities for you guys to practice pitching your game and show the class how you're progressing, right? So we're going to be really transparent here in terms of how you're doing, in terms of, you know, as we're moving forward in the class. And it's going to be a little bit of pressure for you because you need to deliver when it comes to that presentation, right? And that might mean meeting outside of this class and organizing things to get things together for the class when it's due, right? Okay, so that's part of it. There's also, and one of the students came up to me during the break and said, what about that like code freeze? What does that mean, right? What does that mean? Everyone has a different idea of what that means. And I want to talk about it because I think it's important. It's on the outline. What does a code freeze mean? It's in the alpha release stage. Anybody? Code freeze. Does that mean we stop doing all code at that point? No, right? You what? No, that's not what that is. Yes. Can't add any new features. That's what it is, right? So you've done your features. You've done as many, you know, now you're honing in on sharpening what you have, right, at that point. Doesn't mean there's no more coding. Coding continues until the end. Yeah.
Or if there's like a bug and you need to do like a workaround.
Then we have to talk with, then you and I have to come across and talk. There's whoever your technical lead is on your project has to come to me and say, we got a problem.
Yeah.
You know, Houston, we have a problem. We can't continue unless we do a real redesign of this one feature. Is that okay? Right? And that's what has to happen in real world. Sometimes, you know, it puts your project at risk. right? When you come to that point, right? So again, when part of what I've asked you to do today is put together your schedule, right? Well, you look here first, your outline. Your outline tells you some of your deliverables, right? So it's got to match the deliverable schedule, right? You've got to have to be producing a presentation. Who's going to come up with those materials, right? Who's going to come up with your so the presentation materials I'm talking about? Because you're not just going to come up here and talk, right? I want structure. When you come up and talk, I want a PowerPoint presentation, some kind of slide deck that backs up what you're talking about, maybe images of your game, talk about where you're at right now, a little checkpoint for everyone to look at. It's got to be interesting and there's no ad-libbing. I don't want an ad-lib session when you come up and kind of, even if you like to dance, if you're a good salesperson, and we kind of talk about this, I know how to dance like the best of them, right? Not about that. It's not about ad-libbing. It's about having a structure and a plan about what you're going to deliver that day, and you're going to deliver it also from a presentation perspective. So it's not going to be an unstructured, here's what we're going to do today, kind of thing.
Are you going to send us?
Yes, I will give you presentation structure. No problem. You'll have that. The other thing is, if you think about this for your final game presentation, that's a culmination of everything. And I'm putting it out there right now. There may be, and I got to work with Alex on this one, there may be a screencast component. I'm putting it out there, right? And that means that you guys got to get together and screencast your final game, right? And I've been showing you how to do it. I'm doing it right now. I'm actually screencasting live on YouTube. It doesn't take a lot, right? And the reason for this is it gives you practice. It's a good selling point. You can always refer back and show anybody in the world your game, even if they're not physically present, right? Which is actually a really cool thing. It's good promotional material. And for us as, for us to mark the game and everything else, it's good. I can always go look back at your screencast and go, oh yeah, they talked about this point. Maybe I missed it when you were doing your presentation, but I can always go back for myself and take a look at that screencast again, right? So that's one thing. So there might be a component like that at the end of your final presentation, right? So, and the midterm exam, again, I'm trying to reduce it as much as possible. Right now it's 20. It's still sitting at 20 because I got to get your participation mark higher. If you're not physically here in class that day, what happens then? Because one of the challenges is people aren't always in class, they miss something or whatever, right? But there's these key points that I want you guys to contribute to. If I see you guys not in class a number of days, that's going to impact you. I will reduce your participation mark at the end of the day. So you know. So if you keep missing class week over week, it's going to affect your team, right? Like it's affected you today. People aren't here today for whatever reason. If you got a good reason why you can't be here, a physical reason, you're sick, you got something you can't get out of or whatever, you got to let me know. And there's a couple people that did that before today's class. That's fine, right? But on a regular basis, you got to be in class. This is one of those classes where we all need to be here because it's a production class. We produce stuff, we meet, we talk to your team members, and it's something that we're going to be producing at the end of the semester, right? Clear? Anyone have any issues? Please, if you do have something and you don't want to talk about in front of everyone else, you can send me a direct message in Slack if you don't want to see me face to face. I'm just saying. You could also meet with me after class. I'm available with you guys after class. You can make an appointment with me throughout the week. I am available. I do live in Toronto, right? So I can meet with you somewhere, right? That kind of stuff. We can meet remotely with, Hangouts. I can have a phone call with you guys or whatever. I don't mind. I'm available to you guys. That's my role, right? So please, it's not that I'm not available, that you're not going to see me for a week. There's ways of communicating with me. If I don't get back to you, right? Email for me is the worst form of communication, right? Well, that and actually like text messaging is probably really bad too, right? But Slack, the great thing about Slack is I do get your message right away. If I don't respond, it's not because I'm not listening to you or I don't care about you. It's because I'm doing one of these things. I'm in class, like I said, or I'm on the road somewhere. I'm doing the road show. I do 1,000 kilometers a week on the road, right? No joke, right? So you got, if I'm going to respond to you, it's because I got time to respond. I'm going to let you know, right? And if it's a common question, like groups, I got these messages, all last week, groups. I want to redo my group. And if I don't respond to you, it's because I'm going to talk about it in class, right? There's enough people that I'm going to discuss in class this thing about, groups. So are we good with groups right now, right? Here's the lockdown. Today, at the end of today, your group is locked, right? So members shifting in and out and all that kind of stuff, you're going to have to go through me for that at this point, right? Because you can't. Otherwise, look, 2 weeks from now, you're going to produce something, right? How's that possible if you keep on shifting around your groups? It's not going to happen, right? And also, how can we keep everyone together and productive? So please, after today, no group changes, okay? Are we clear? Great. All right, let's go back to last week. Now we're doing the technical portion of our day, right? So it's technical. I want everyone to do this with me. This is not, I'm not a programmer day, right? we are all doing this together. So crank up Visual Studio Code or your text editor or whatever you like to use. I gave you a number of options last week, right? I'm going to go to the stuff that we did last week. So I'm going to start with that stuff. So if you look at GitHub, let's take a look at GitHub. I do have a George Brown College kind of centered thing. So if I look at George Brown College, right, I do have a lesson 1 on GitHub. So if you're not familiar with GitHub, if you go to github.com/George Brown College, that's where we're going to keep all of our code. We only have one piece there right now, lesson 1. We're going to base our lesson 2 off of this one. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel again today and re-download everything and reset up everything. It doesn't make any sense. So please, let's start with lesson 1 and we'll modify it to create lesson 2. Okay? I'm also using, for those people who missed last week and who are technical people, I'm also using Visual Studio Code, right? That's what I'm going to be using. However, you can use whichever editor you want to create your stuff, all right? So it just, to me, Visual Studio Code is great because it gives us additional code hinting for JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and TypeScript, which we're going to be talking about today, all right, a little bit. We're going to move more and more into TypeScript as we go. Okay, so let's take a look. So I've got this project here, GAME1014. I'm going to make a new folder on my desktop, which is really messy, which I hate. And here's 1014. I'm going to take this lesson and put it in there. And now I have this one, and I'm going to duplicate it. If you're a Mac person, just click duplicate. If you're a Windows user, copy and paste, and it'll create a copy, right? If you don't have this, again, please download it from GitHub. So we're on the same page. Please don't try and create this if you don't have it on your own at this point, okay? So again, the link is github.com/George Brown College. And if you look at Slack, our Slack channel, the GitHub link should be on here, right? Here's our GitHub link right here in our Slack channel, right? So remember, I'm going to be announcing things on Slack a lot, okay? All right, so now that we know what we're doing, we know where we're starting. I've got this copy. I'm going to change this to, of course, lesson 2. That's the one I'm going to make. And I got a problem right away. My problem is my Git repository. Remember we talked about Git being local and GitHub being remote. That's the cloud. I have a Git repository that's local that's in a hidden folder called .git, right? So let's try this out. So I'm going to open up my terminal window or command prompt. Last week we talked about setting up command prompt on your PC and having Git available to you on in your local folder here. I'm going to go CD, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Windows or a Mac person. I'm going to drag and drop lesson 2 into my folder like this, into my terminal or command prompt, and press enter. Right? Notice that it says in my terminal here, master, which means I have a Git repository. And the way to check that on the Mac is ls-al. Locally, you can see that I have a .git folder if you're a Mac person. If you're a Windows person, you just go in there and you can see the folder. There would be, in the hidden folder section, there would be a .git. Does everyone know how to see that? Your hidden folders on Windows. All right. If you don't know, and I'm going to assume you don't know, I'm going to crank up my VMware, right? So I'm going to crank up Windows 10, right? And I'm going to do kind of a switch between Windows and Mac. I'm going to go switch between the two things. I'm virtualizing for those people who are a Mac person. Anyone a Mac person again? This one I can't remember from last week. Got 1, right? 2, 3 people who are Mac people. The rest are PC people. That's fine. So the biggest problems we have when you're a PC user is you have problems with the command prompt. Command prompt is a problem, right? Because there's additional setup for command prompt. Notice that I have this other project here, and just like I did on the Mac side, right? When I downloaded this project, I'm going to create a new folder, right? Which is going to be GAME1014. This is where I'm going to keep all my stuff, and I'm going to drag and drop when my VMware works. Drag and drop this in there, this folder, and I'm going to copy and paste it. This is how it works. I'm going to copy and then paste, and it's going to create a copy. And if I look at it, if I open it up and I make it lesson 2, it doesn't make it lesson 2, right? Because if I open it up now, I see these things here, right? Lesson 1, and here's my assets and everything else. You see I've got no assets right now. And here's my contents. I've got my game.css, and here's my scripts, my game.js, right? And my index.html. If I was going to have a Git repository, it would be here. I would see it right now because I have exposed all my files and folders. And I've done that by going to View in Windows 10. And I've hit this Options button right here on the right. And you can see that if I click View, that these are my options. I have display the full path in the title bar. I'm showing my hidden files, folders, and drives, right? I'm unchecked hide extensions for known file types, so I can see the extensions. I have unchecked, and this is the most important one, hide protected operating system files. I want to see them all, right? And if I had a .git folder, it would appear here right now. It wouldn't be hidden from me, right? What you need to do is if you have a .git folder, and I'm gonna fix this problem because I have a bit of a problem. I'm a little different between the two files. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me just get rid of these for a second because I got copies on the Mac side. I'm just gonna go back to the Mac and grab those two folders for a second, right? So these are the two folders. I'm gonna copy them. I'm gonna bring them into Windows. Great thing about VMware is it allows you to drag and drop or copy paste, right, from Mac to Windows. There we go. Now let's take a look. Lesson 2, I just deleted the .git folder. I was going to do that, right? But here's the .git folder. This is what it would look like for you, right? It has a .git folder. If you've downloaded from my repository, however, if you took it from there, there's no .git because if you just download from me, there's nothing. It'll be empty. You have to create your Git repository on your own. We're going to do that again today, right? But if you're a person who followed along from last week, then you're going to have these hidden .git folders inside of your folder, your project folder, right? Now for lesson 2, we can't have the same .git folder because I want to start off a new Git repository. So I'm going to delete it. I'm going to right click if you already had it from last time and press delete. What that does is it wipes away your Git repository altogether and you can start it anew. Okay, let's review the commands. So I'm in. What I want to do again on the Windows machines, and again, forgive me, my Mac friends, but I'm going to start on the Windows side, right? If I pull up my command prompt, I want to go CD again, and I want to pull in the folder for today, this one. Okay, questions, and this is a test for you guys. What is my first Git command that I need? Huh? Git init. Let's do it together, right? Git init. Don't worry if you can't do it, if you're stuck or something doesn't work. You can always download the video later or watch the video later. You can watch me at squirrel speed, right? And get her done faster. Git init is your first command. If it doesn't work, if you get something like this, I'm just going to put in a random command, blob, right? If you get this, is not a recognized as an internal or external command, guess what happens? Your Git setup sucks. You didn't set it up properly. You failed somehow, right, to do that. And you got to fix it. How do we fix our Git setup? I talked about this last week. No, Git init is just initialization. You need to fix your problem, right?
Yeah, we have to make the console.
Yeah. Well, the way to do it is there's two quick fixes. But the main one is it's in your advanced system settings. You got to fix your environment variables. We talked about that too. So if I go back to my Windows button and I type in advanced system settings for Windows, it's going to give me this window that pops up, this little dialog box. And underneath there's something called environment variables. And you've got to point your path variable. This is your Windows machines here. Both in your user variables and in your system variables, you get to point them to your Git installation. And normally, if you use GitHub, the desktop tool, so if you went to desktop.github.com to download the desktop tool, which is again recommended for those people who've never done it before, you can download the desktop tool from here, which gives you a UI, a user interface for GitHub, right? It includes something called kind of a Git command, right? And the Git command, I'm just going to show you what that looks like. Let me just stop this for a second. It actually gives you a Git command called Git shell, right? Git shell, it is actually from GitHub, and it gives you it fixes some of your problems. But sometimes you need to go into your environment variables, and you got to point to where Git and GitHub is installed. And the way to do that, of course, if I was going to look at where the common installation happens, I'm just looking at my file system. If I go to C, so my PC, C:, right, users, This is where your installation happens. And I'm going to go to Tom, or your name in your case, right? Now, this is where you need to expose your hidden files and folders, or this won't show up. App data. Notice how it's kind of grayed out. You need to go in there, go to local, and then go to GitHub. And there's going to be this long string of characters, portable git, in command. This whole line, this is the path, right? And this is where git lives. Now, I've recorded it, so if you missed it, don't worry. You can always go back and see where it is. A lot of times when you get an unrecognized command is because you haven't, or GitHub is not on your command path, and therefore it's unrecognized on your command prompt. That's one of the biggest issues with Windows users. They can't do it. They can't get this stuff done because your command prompt's not working properly. If you're a Mac user, no issues. Now, the good thing is, you're not a Mac user, but you have Macs in front of you in this room. So worst case scenario, you can like log into the Mac in front of you, use a terminal command, download my files, and you have no installation to do. You're ready to go if you're on the Mac side, right? Because terminal has access to all these things. When you install GitHub and all that kind of stuff, Mac has all that available to you in front of you. And the other option that I brought up last week really quickly was a cloud-based IDE called Cloud9, right? If you go to Cloud9, this is a zero installation. No, that's not the right one. This one, no. It's this one. It's Cloud9, c9.io. If you go here, right, it gives you, it's a cloud-based IDE that's got everything you need to get going, right? There's very little installation here whatsoever, and it gives you a little Ubuntu terminal at the bottom of your screen, right, where you can do all your running. So that's the other option. Okay, without further ado, we've downloaded our project, right? And again, if you missed this or you can't follow along, I'm too fast for you. I've never been accused of being too slow. You know, it's right here. Here's our little installation file. I need to bring this into Visual Studio Code, right? Lesson 2. Okay. As well, I'm bringing up Visual Studio Code, but I got to finish my git commands, right? So I did git init. What's my next git command? After I do a git init, what's my next command? Git add what? Git add dot, right? Because if I don't do git add dot, right? Sorry about this. If I don't do git add dot, then I haven't added anything to the staging area. And the staging area for Git, which is your local repository, is almost like an area that we're saying, here's all the files that we're checkmarking that are going to be using in this snapshot, right? We're going to make a snapshot of all of our files, right? That snapshot we call a commit, right? When we take a commit, it's a snapshot of all of our files. And in order for me to take a snapshot, I need to indicate which files I'm taking a snapshot of. And that's what git add dot does. It says, take a snapshot of all these files, right? Okay, press enter. And then I'm going to clear the screen. So CLS on the Windows machine, clear on the Mac. Next command, what's the next one? I need to make a commit. How do I do that? How do I format my commit? Git commit -m, and then we're going to call it initial commit the first time. This is all review from last week. If you haven't seen last week's video, please see the YouTube video. We have a little playlist there. You can go through it on your own, right? So this right now, what we've done is we've set up a local repository, right? Right now, it's already done for our project, right? And we need to do that every time we create a project, right? Okay, cool. So we got a repository, and now I need to connect it to GitHub, right? So remember how this works. I'm going to go to github.com, right? I'm going to go to George Brown College, right? My George Brown College, right? And there's my lesson, but I need to make a new one. I need to kind of create a new repository, right? Let's make this a little smaller so everyone can see it. It's my new repository. I'm going to click new, right? Or you can click the plus. It's going to ask me for my repository name. I'm creating a space, a container where I'm going to share my files on GitHub. That's what I'm doing here. And it has to be unique to my repository, right? I can't make the same name over and over again. It's got to be unique. It doesn't have to be unique between you and I, right? We can have the same name. I can share the same name as a repository that you have on your GitHub. My GitHub and your GitHub are totally different namespaces, right? So I'm going to call this, of course, GAME1014, Winter 2017, and it's lesson 2, right? That's what it's going to be called. And press enter. Now, GitHub provides you with the last piece of the puzzle, how to connect to it. It's right here. These last 2 lines, I'm going to add a remote, which is to my repository. This is this line. And the remote's name is going to be called origin. That's the remote. That's the connection to GitHub, right? And then I'm going to push to the remote. This line here is push minus U means unconditional. So it's going to, if there's a problem, just push to the remote that's called origin into the master branch. That's what this means, right? We'll talk about branching later on. So I'm going to copy these two lines. I'm going to go back to my terminal, and I'm going to right-click and paste. Sometimes just right-clicking is enough, right? And when I do that, it's going to put everything up on GitHub for you. So now you should see the following. If I go back on GitHub, and if I refresh, if I refresh, or if I go to my code, you can see that I have one commit. One commit is the single snapshot that I have of my code by me, right? And I have all of my files so far that are up on GitHub. This is the code base that I'm going to be working from today, okay? Let's continue. So I want to drag and drop my files into Visual Studio Code. And the way to do that is, and there's different ways, but I can just drag and drop my folder right into Visual Studio Code. And when it actually updates, I'm going to see my files and folders. This is my solution right here. This is my project files, right? And if I click on something, like for example, my JavaScript, my game.js file, here's my game.js file. This is it right here. And I went over this last week, right? Last week I said, let's create something called an IFI, which is an immediately invoked function expression. And what that is, it's just a structure I want you to look at, right? And what this does, let's take a look at this code together. If you can't look at it, take a look at it on GitHub. If you haven't downloaded this, go up on your GitHub now, take a look at George Brown College, go into that file, click in there, and you can see this file on GitHub if you can't watch it locally for whatever reason, okay? Now let's take a look. I've created 3 variables, a canvas variable that allows me to hook into the canvas object that's on my index.html. Here it is right here, right? So I hook into this with my canvas variable. This canvas variable hooks into my canvas object, which I've installed in my index.html. And last week I talked about how my index.html, I'm not going to do a lot of HTML or CSS here in this course, right? I'm going to make a pure JavaScript game with you guys, right? So my index.html is my manifest. That's what it is for the entire game. Every JavaScript file that I'm going to add in here is going to go in here. So it's very important for us to do that, right? I've also defined a size for my game. For now, it's 640 by 480. I can change this to make it a larger game if I want to, but for now, that's the size, right? And also, I'm going to have to test my game somewhere. Most web games need a server for testing, all right? Especially when it comes to preloading and all that stuff. And I set up a testing server last week, remember? What was the testing server I used? Remember how I did it? I used light-server, right? So if I downloaded with npm, and I said I did something like this, light-server, and if I press enter, and again, to make npm work on your command prompt, you know, remember what we have to do, right? I did this last week. Remember this week? This is the last thing we ended up with last week, right? This hello world, spinning hello world, right? This thing here, it is bound, or it has a browser sync. So if I change anything in my code, right? So if I go to my code and I change my code to say something different right now, instead of hello world, I want to say goodbye world, like we did last time, like a goodbye cruel world, a bigger thing. So goodbye, you know, cruel world. Let's see if I can do that. With everything, the lag that I'm feeling right now is crazy, right? But I'm feeling lag because I'm working within Windows, virtualizing, and kind of broadcasting all at the same time, which actually is slowing me down, which is good for you. If I save this right now, right? Okay, once I save this, if I go back to my web page, right? It's rebooting. Look, it's getting this back and going again. And there's goodbye cruel world now. It's instant. I don't have to reload my web page anymore. This is a great workflow because the biggest problem we have is I have to start the web server again. I have to go and relaunch my website. You know, I got to do all these things, right?
Are the words contracting in on themselves as they rotate around? Or is that
no, that's just an optical illusion because they're rotating, right? And I'm also getting a bit of lag here because of, like you can see here, because of my VM, right? I'm really taxing my system because remember, I'm running 2 different operating systems on my machine, right? All right. So, and it's not very exciting. But let me go back and do some other stuff here. So again, I set up my framework, and the framework that I set up with you guys is, here's my IFE, here's my canvas, my stage, my hello world, and all that kind of stuff, my hello label, and everything else. And this is the framework that I've set up, right? I need my start function because my start function right here really defines what I need to kind of connect to. And one of the biggest problems I had, remember last week what I was trying to do, I don't have any code hinting for create.js. Right? I don't. I never get code ending for create.js. Create.js is a library, and I got to remember all the commands. That's a real pain in where, right? So instead of having to do that, is there a way I can get code hinting for create.js? And the answer is yes, there is a way. It's a bit of setup, but I'm going to show you how to do it. And there's always going to be a little bit of setup with me, so forgive me when I do this, right? I'm going to use something called TypeScript to do it, right? And I'm going to stop this because it's killing me. Right? So TypeScript, if you go to typescriptlang.org, I start typing typescriptlang.org, right? And I'm going to put this link, typescriptlang.org, I'm going to put it inside your Slack channel so you can, so if you don't know, if you can't get to that, you can get to it with me. So I'm just going to pop it in here. And that's not what I wanted. Didn't translate when I copied and pasted, right? Copy. There we go. And then paste. There we go. So typescriptlang.org, what it is, and I think I may have put it in there earlier, really it's like what it says here. It's JavaScript that scales, but it also gives the best features of the latest version of JavaScript, which is ECMAScript 6, right? And it's fully compatible cross-browser. So it'll work across any browser, including mobile. Okay? But what it gives us is the following. It allows us, and if I was going to look at Playground for a second to describe what TypeScript is, it allows us to write object-oriented code and convert it to something like pure JavaScript. So if you don't know pure JavaScript objects, it's okay. If you understand object orientation, do you guys do any object-oriented, design? Are you doing that this semester? Yeah?
Just starting.
Same, almost exact same idea, creating a class and everything else will translate into pure JavaScript. So stuff that you can use directly, right? But not only that, but it also gives us code hinting with something called typings. Typings. And we're going to do that today. I'm going to set up typings, and I can do that with NPM. Your best friend for TypeScript, by the way, and create.js is your documentation that's online, right? So if I was to go to documentation on TypeScript, right? And if I look at the handbook, right, you can see that if I want to do things like, create a class or whatever, it'll give you some code examples of how to do it right here. Now, TypeScript is going to be just like a superset, like I said, of JavaScript for how to do that stuff, right? All right. Declaration files is where we want to go. If I click on declaration files, right? What I want to do is I want to be able to create, right, or add a type in there for for TypeScript, right? And typings, what it does is it kind of says, I want to have a type library. It used to be in a library called definitely typed. This is where it came from. So this GitHub definitely typed, right? That's the library that it used to come from, okay? And what definitely typed was a GitHub repository that included code hinting, types basically, for all of my libraries, all the most popular libraries in the web, Phaser included, right? So if you can't get good code hinting, TypeScript allows you to do that. And that's what I want to focus on this topic today. How do I get good code hinting for my libraries? Because otherwise I'm going to be hamstrung trying to figure out how things work, right? So if I looked at something like easel.js, here's an example, because that's what I used last time. If I look for, there it is, there's easel.js. And this is my library, right, for my TypeScript, for my easel.js. Now, in order for me to set this up, there's a couple of steps I need to do here in Visual Studio Code. One, I need a tsconfig.json file. Let's put it together, right? Remember I talked about bower.json last week, right click, new file, and it's going to be called tsconfig.json. tsconfig.json. Add it to my files. If you're following along, right, add it to my project files, tsconfig.json. I'm going to use, if you know JSON format, it's just a bunch of objects, right? So I'm going to use 2 curly braces for that. By the way, can you guys see this, or is it too small? If it's too small, I can change my preferences. Let me just do that now. So the way to do that in Visual Studio Code is if I go to Preferences, and if I go to User Settings, right? I think it's User Settings. My font family is here, and my font size should probably be here as well. Cursor style. Here it is. My editor font size. I made it 16 before, but I'm going to change my editor font size to something bigger, like 20. I'm afraid, but I'm going to do it, right? And the reason why I'm doing it just so it's easier for you guys to see on the screen, right? So there it is. All right, so here's my editor, and I'm going to press Control Space. And what Control Space does is give you some options to how to create my tsconfig, my TypeScript configuration file. I need this first, right? I'm going to talk about compiler options. I'm going to hit compiler options first, right? Compiler options tells, because TypeScript is a compiled language, just like C# or Java or whatever, it compiles. Actually, it transpiles is what it's called, from TypeScript to pure JavaScript. That's what it does, right? The next one I want is, if I look at all the other options, again, I'm getting this with Control Space, right? If I look down, is my target. If you look at the target, if I skip down to where it says target, here it is. My target is the ECMAScript version, the version of JavaScript that I'm targeting. I want to target ECMAScript 5 for now, because that'll make it the most compatible, right? I also want to target, if I press Control Space again, if I want to look at module, right, the module types that I want to use, right? I want to make the module common JS. When we do modules, when we break up our code into different files, I want to use the common JS system of doing that. So that's the next option. I also want to include, Control Space again, I also want to include maps for all my files, right? Source maps is what it's called, right? So here's source map. And I want to make source maps equal to true. So whenever it transpiles, right, as an example, I wanted to create source maps so that I get better code hinting and debugging in my browser. That's what this does, right? Okay, let's save this. So that's the first step that I want to make, right? The first step when it comes to TypeScript. Next, I want to use npm on the command line. Let me just stop the server for a second because it's eating me, right? I'm going to clear the screen. I want to use npm to get typings, right? To get typings for create.js and those things, those kind of libraries. And now I got to show you the command. The command, if I was going to look it up on Google, if I was going to say npm typings for TypeScript, how does it work? It'll direct you back to how it works, right? How do I do the declarations in typings? And I want to show you how it works. I want to make sure there's a little link to that. So typings I can do globally, but this is not what I want, right? If you're going to look it up, I want to kind of do a type with typings. So I want to publish with TypeScript, but I want to make it the easy way, right? So I want to kind of do this @type kind of thing. Here it is right here, right? @types. And if you look at Stack Overflow, it tells you how to do stuff, right? It allows me to use the @types organization in npm to declare something. That's what I want, right? So when I do typings used to be done with other ways, but I want to use @types, right? @types. Hopefully it's not going to take me to Twitter. That would be really bad, right? Okay. So here's an example of this. I want to say npm install @types, and then I want to look at the modules I want, and they have to be one-to-one with all of my versions of create.js and easel and everything else. So how do I know what I need, right? And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. If you're confused, don't worry about it. This is not the last time we're going to talk about it, right? But notice in my library, in my index.html, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 libraries: easel.js, tween.js, sound.js, and preload.js. And we talked about the whole create.js library last week, right? Create.js, if you go to create.js.com, right? If I look at create.js, the library for this is where you get them, right? This is where you can grab all your documentation as well, right? Here's create.js. And there's easel, tween, sound, and preload. It's a suite of libraries. It's an API, right? It's not a framework, okay? So I want to do this. I want to say npm install @types, and then the name of the file, the name of my type that I want down. Let's do easel.js first. I'm going to try this out. So here's the command: npm install @types /, and then we'll try easel.js. Sorry for the spacing here, because I have a long path from my project, right? And then space, and you can't see this. I'll bring it over here. -- save. And the reason why I want to do this, yes.
So you do that
in your folder for your project.
And it will only work for that folder.
Yes, only for this folder, only for your project. Okay. If I press save, if I did it right, it's going to go out, grab the type if it finds it, right? And it did, for create.js and easel.js, and install it inside of my code. Now there's a problem here. It gave me these warnings. And the reason why it gave me these warnings is it says, hey, you said -- save. That means I want to save my types as a dependency, a project dependency, that I need typing so I can get code hinting for create.js. And yes, and in order for me to set that up, I already got them, but in order for me to set this up, right, I'm just going to do a clear command. I need to do an npm init. And again, in order for you to do npm init, going back to last week, you need to install Node.js. So I'm doing an npm init here, and then I'm going to name my file, but it's got to be all lowercase for npm 1014 W2017 lesson 2, and it's going to step me through, a couple of this little wizard create.js demo, and it's going to ask me for some questions for the for GitHub and everything. I'm just going to press enter. I'm also going to put my name in there as the author. And now what it's done is it's created this package.json file here inside my project. It created this automatically based on my choices. So I did npm init, and it created this thing. Okay, now that I have this, it can keep track of my dependencies, right? Which is, going back to this, that command I did, which is npm install @types easel.js. Let me just kind of go back here and do a clear screen so you can see that. So I'll do it again. npm install. You can do this as many times as you want. npm install @types easel.js -- save. So it's going to go out now, grab easel.js again, and this time include it inside my folder, right? So if I go back to my Visual Studio Code, you can see that under dependencies, I have easel.js, right, at 8.3.5, right? This is the code hinting. That's all it is for my project. And I know you're like, Tom, I really don't need code hinting. I do things in Notepad++. All the power to you, right? Me, I need code hinting to move, because I got a lot of stuff to code. I want to rapidly code my game. I only have 2 weeks to produce a game. I'm going to use code hinting, right? Let's add them in. Let's keep going. I'm also going to put in the other ones. I'm going to npm install @types, and then I also need a couple of other things. I need sound.js, or sorry, I'll do tween next. Tween.js. -- save. It's going to go out and grab tween.js. It's going to put it inside my typings. Good. npm install, right, @types sound.js -- save. -- save puts it in as my dependency, right? And the last one I need, which it already added in for me, it already did it for me, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyway, is npm install @types preload.js -- save. It's going to go out, grab preload, and put it in. Okay, so what did all this do? Like, what the hell did I just do there, right? First of all, it said that in my dependencies, right, my project dependencies, I need code hinting for these libraries. That's what it said, right? And what it's going to do now for me is the following. Here's my canvas. Here's my stage. And notice how under my stage, if I want to give myself code hinting, I could do something like this. I could change this game.js, right? I'm going to change the ending for this to TypeScript, to TS. Do this with me. right click. I want to rename. I'm going to change my game.js to game.ts. Okay, there it is. Now it's a TypeScript file. It's not a JavaScript file anymore, but we have to convert it. Save this. Okay, here's the problem. Now I can go in there and start typing. I mean, add types. For example, my stage. I want to get code hinting. I can do something like this. My stage is of type. That's what the colon means. Create.js. Take a look. I'm getting code hinting now, right? Create.js dot stage. Okay. Now, when I hover over stage down here, it tells me that it is of type create.js. It's the stage for my create.js project. And this is what I was missing last week, right? Don't worry if you don't get this. I'm going to put it up on GitHub soon, right? And the same thing goes with my canvas. Canvas also has a type. It's of type HTML element, right? I can go HTML element. That's what my canvas is. And my hello label is also got a type, right? It is of type create.js.text, like I said last time. Now I can get code hinting for it all. If I hover over canvas, it tells me that's an HTML element. If I hover over stage, it tells me it's a create.js stage, right? If I hover over hello label, which is down here, it tells me it's of type create.js.text. And because of that, I can access all the built-in methods and functions that are built into these objects that are part of that library, easel.js. I don't have to remember anymore. I can just go in there, press the dot, and bam, I'm going to get all these options, right? Which is going to help me code faster. Now, that's one thing. The next thing is I need to transpile this, because right now it's in TypeScript. I need to transpile this to JavaScript. And the way to do that, to turn on your transpiler, is, first of all, you need to install the latest version of TypeScript. Let's do that together. How do I do that? I'm going to clear the screen, and it's an npm install TypeScript, right, -G. When I do that, npm, the Node Package Manager, is going to go out to the web, grab the latest version of TypeScript, and install it locally on my machine. Now I'm at TypeScript 2.1.5, right? And if I have TypeScript, now I can do my compilation right in here. And the way I can do that is Control-Shift-B. If I'm in my Visual Studio Code, I can say Control-Shift-B, right? Or Command-Shift-B on the Mac, right? That's what it's going to do. And let me just go back there and try that out, right? So I'm going to be in here. I'm going to say, if I press save, right? So Control-Shift-B is the command, right? Now it says no task runner is configured. This is the response you should get. And if I click Configure Task Runner, right? Notice that I have some options. The one I want you to choose is watch mode. This is really cool, right? Watch mode. And what it's going to do is going to add another file to your project called tasks.json. And it's going to allow us, every time I change anything in my TS file, it's going to generate a JS file immediately. I don't have to transpile ever again manually, right? And to see this in action, if I press Control-Shift-B for the first time now, it's going to transpile my files if things went well, right? Here's my scripts, right? And into two things. I've got my JavaScript file. Here's my JavaScript file, pure JavaScript now, right? As well as a source map to give me good code hinting on the browser. That's what it's done. It's actually transpiled everything from TypeScript, so from this format, with all these little types, which mean nothing to JavaScript, right, to JavaScript. And if you look at JavaScript, it removes those, right? Why do I do this? Why do I use TypeScript? Why do I make my life more complex? Because I get good tooling, right, which is one of the banes of web developers. Web developers, the biggest problem is tooling. It sucks. You don't get any code hinting. You don't get any debugging, right? And it makes your life hell, right? Not so with TypeScript. TypeScript makes me a JavaScript superhero, even if you're not, okay? I'm trying to sell this to you because I'm going to be using it for the remainder of the semester, right? Okay, I've added TypeScript. This is a great place to upload to GitHub. And because I've done all this, right, and I've set up my GitHub project, notice that Visual Studio Code includes GitHub integration right here. So I don't have to do command line if I don't want. I can just click here. Notice that these are all the things I've added in because I've added some packages through the Node Package Manager. These are all the files I've added and changed, right now. I'm going to go here where it says the number, where it says changes. I'm going to click the plus, and it's going to stage all these files. You know what I've just done? Git add dot. That's what that does. Yeah.
I face every time I try to do this, I have the problem that it always asks for my username and password. I have no idea how to input it into the.
You have to do a git config, and I'll come to me afterwards. I'll show you how to fix that. All right. So here, what I got to do is I'm going to go to here. I'm going to put a commit message now. I'm going to say added TypeScript, right? And I'll say type definitions, which is what I've really done. I haven't changed anything. Definitions, right? And I'm going to click the little check mark, which is going to save my commit. That's the second commit I've got now, right? And I'm going to click this little ellipses, and then now that I have my remote configured, I can just do a push. And when I do a push, it takes my local files, right, and it sends them up to GitHub without me doing any command line stuff at all, if you want to avoid that, right? Let's take a look at my GitHub repository, make sure that it's there. If I go back to my GitHub, which is here, and if I refresh, I can see now that I have 2 commits, right? 2 commits. I have got my initial commit plus my added TypeScript commit, right? And everything you need to make things go to, kind of, kick it off and go for yourself is right here. All right. So if you weren't able to follow along, please access my files as a template up on GitHub. And I'm going to be doing that with you every single time. Now, I know this is a long explanation for what we did, but I need to give you a bit of a review because you've never seen this stuff before, right? So please, like I said last time, please look at video 1, and please look at this video to set up your template on your own, if you can, at home. There's got to be a little bit of work you do outside of this class, right? Okay, those are the 2 things. Now, I want to add one more thing, right? Because I've added this in my, if I go back to my folders, then we'll end for the day. Notice that I got my TS file. I'm not going to work with my JS file, my JavaScript file anymore. That ship has sailed. I'm only going to work with TS from now on, and every time I make a change, bam, it's going to transpile into JavaScript. That's how it's going to be. Okay, well, I've got this stuff going on. This is cool, right? This is my kind of my code right here. But I want to add typing to everything else to make my life easier, right? And an example of that is, what does this function return, right? It returns void, right? It doesn't return anything. So I can do that with TypeScript. I can say, I can indicate what this function returns, okay? I'm also going to give some kind of comments, right? Like this is my, right here, these are my kind of global variables, right? These are what they are. That's what they are. These are global variables that are available anywhere in my code, right? And further down, I'm also going to say that my function also returns void. This function, update, it returns void. And it also takes in an event. There's an event object that gets passed, which is of type create.js. Take a look at this. .event, right? So I've added typing in here, right? That's all I'm doing here. So the way we add types to all of our variables in JavaScript with TypeScript is we add a colon and the type. What are the major types of JavaScript that you know of? Anyone? You guys learning JavaScript at all? Number, that's a type. In JavaScript, it's called number. It's not double, it's not float, it's not any of those integers or anything. It's called number, right? Second one is string. That's a type. Boolean, that's a type, right? And there's many others. There's little small ones, right? But those are generic types. How does JavaScript do its typing? It's loosely typed language, right? It uses type inference in some ways, right? It kind of says, well, if you assign something to me, that's what type I am. Some people call this duck typing, right? If it looks like a duck and sounds like a duck, it's a duck, right? So if you assign integer, it's an integer. If you assign a string, it's a string, right? And JavaScript is so loosely typed that if you change the type for that particular variable, it's okay, right? Not okay for us. We don't want that to happen, and TypeScript is going to stop us. Once we declare a type in TypeScript, it's going to say, wait a minute, Tom, you're redeclaring this to something else. This could potentially be a mistake. Are you sure? That's what it does for us. Whereas before, we can do whatever we want, and if we forget, we're going to have a bug somewhere in our code we can't find. All right. So this is our code. I want to talk about images a little bit with our code, right? We have this, but I want to set up a button, okay? And really quickly, and bear with me, I know I'm running a little bit over overtime today. I want to create a button, and I want to do that very quickly in a program called Fireworks, right? Fireworks is just like Photoshop. I know this isn't a art creation class, but I want to make a button really quick that I'm going to reuse. I'm going to put it inside my project, okay? And I'm going to share with you on GitHub so you can test this button with me, okay? What is the button going to look like? First of all, I'm going to make a new in Fireworks, or like Photoshop, it's the same thing. The width of the button is going to be about 150 pixels. And I'm going to make the button's height about 60 pixels, right? It's going to have a transparent background. I'm going to press OK. So there's my button. And if it's not wide enough, if I want to make this bigger, I can later. I want to give it a bit of a background. This is going to generate a PNG image, right? So there's my background for the button. I don't know if I want to make it gold, but let's make it something else. If I want to make this button something like, blue or something else, I'll make it blue. And I'll add some text to the button by default. Let's add this button text. We'll call it Click Me, right? Click Me, man. Click Me, right? There's my Click Me button. It's very simple. It's a name, but it's an image. This button is an image. It's not text, okay? Now I'm going to save this. I'm going to File, Save As, and we'll call this button the Click Me button, right? Click Me button, right? And I'm going to save this button on my desktop really quickly. There it is. And if I go to my desktop for a second and see that button, and by the way, I'm just going to drag and drop it for those people who want it, want to follow along, right? So first of all, where the hell is it, right? I've got a very messy desktop. Here it is. Here's my Click Me button, right? Well, what I could do is in Slack, I'm going to pull it into Slack. So I'm going to kind of do one of these, kind of drag and drop into Slack. Here's my Click Me button. Now you guys all have it, right? So you don't have to do the creation. Here it is, Click Me. Right? You can always grab it from Slack, right? I'm going to copy it and paste it to on the Windows side. So copy it. We'll go to Windows. Right here it is. And what I want to do here is I want to paste it inside of my project folder, right? So I'm going to kind of minimize some of these windows here to get there. Somehow Firefox has popped up too. Probably something I did, I don't know. But here inside my game folder, right, I have an assets folder, and I'm going to create a subfolder for my assets folder called images, lowercase. And inside my images folder, I'm going to drag and drop or copy paste my Click Me button. Right, there it is. Now that I have this, I have an image, and I'm going to refer to it by creating a bitmap object in Create.js. Okay, here it is. So I'm going to make a new object up here, global variable this time. Again, we're going to call this the Click Me button, which is going to be of type create.js.bitmap. I'm declaring the type ahead of time. The reason why I want to do this is because it's going to give me good code hinting for later on, right? Here inside of my function, I want to create a Click Me button, right? Now here I've added the label. Remember I did the label? Here's the label. I want to kind of make this separate. Here's my Click Me button. I'm going to say Click Me button is equal to a new create.js.bitmap, right? You guys can see it better. It needs a couple things. It needs the string URL for my bitmap. And what I want to do is I want to indicate where this is. Now I'm sitting inside the assets folder, inside the string folder, the scripts folder. I got to go up a step, right? Because from a pathing perspective, I'm doing absolute pathing. Right now, I'm going to go up a step to scripts and down into assets, right? And down into images, and then the Click Me button. That's the path. So here we go. I'm going to go up a step to the main folder, right? I'm going to go to assets. I'm going to go to images, and then I'm going to put in the Click Me button.png. That is the link to my button, right? That's what I require for my bitmap. That's the bitmap image. Have I added it to my stage? Have I added the button yet? No. I have to do what I did earlier. I got to go stage. Remember, I had to figure this out. Dot, and there it is. Look, add child comes up as an option, because now my button is going to be a child of the stage container, the super container called the stage. I'm going to add in my Click Me button. Here it is, right? So that's the first thing I'm going to, where is this click me button going to be? And is it going to be a button right now? No, it's just going to be an image. Let's see it. And by the way, let's stop this rotation stuff from happening. I don't want this rotation anymore, right? So I'm going to get rid of this. Let's take a look, right? So I'm going to serve up, first of all, did it update? If I look at my, I just saved everything. How about Game.js? Did it transpile? Yeah. Look, it transpiled into pure.js, right? It transpiled and it added the button, right? Now I got to make sure that on my command line, I launch my server. And when I do this, I'm going to have a fixed, I'm not going to have any rotation anymore. I'm going to have my goodbye crew. Well, my click me button's way up there. Whoa. Why? Because the top left corner of the screen is where I put it. So I can add bitmaps easily anywhere on my stage, right? But I want to make this interactive. And for this, I need to make it clickable. For me to make it clickable, and please forgive me, I'm running a little bit over time, I need to add an event listener, okay? I'm going to do this for you, even if you don't understand it, but I will explain it going forward, okay? So how do I do that? Here's the code. I'm going to say something like this, right? I'm going to go to my code, and I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say click me button. Right, so I'm going to start typing click me button dot on. That's the beautiful thing, right? On click. Sorry, I'm getting my heart attack is happening again because I'm running live and I'm trying to do everything with my little VM. So I'm just going to close this down for a second. So dot click, and I need a callback function for this, which I'm going to call this the click me button, or the click event. Click me button. My click me button click event. I don't have this yet, but I'm going to define it for you. Here it is. I'm going to make a new function down here, right? Which I'm going to define as click me button click, right? This one. And inside of here, I want to change my hello label to say something else. So my hello label dot text, I want to change my hello label dot text to say clicked. All right, so I'm making a button. I've added an event listener, right? Now see how it says there's a problem. It says there's an error. And if I kind of looked at this, it says cannot invoke an expression whose type lacks a call signature. Type string has no compatible call signatures. Well, yeah, because I'm making it like this, and I forgot. That's why code editing is so great. I forgot that it's got to be an assignment like this. This is what I really need to do. All right, so this is cool. I've done everything. Let's relaunch my server. Right, so I'm going to kind of stop my server for a second and then relaunch so I can see it. And hopefully it's transpiled by now, right? Light-server. And when I do this, I should be able to click my button and change my text from goodbye cruel world to clicked, right? Let's take a look. If it actually did this work for me. And it did not. And I apologize for the slowness of my machine, but oh, there it is. It's going now. But what it's trying to do is multiple things at the same time. Again, I'm running. If I was running on the Mac side, I'd be done. So there's my localhost 3000. I see my button's not going to change, but if I click my button now, right, it changes to clicked. So what it does, what I've actually set up is the way button or events work in JavaScript or in any other language is there's two pieces to them. There's the listener, I'm listening for the message, which is the event. And then there's the handler, which is my code that's going to fire or trigger when the event happens. Okay, we're going to talk about event handling and JavaScript going forward. Don't worry about it, but this is the code. I'm going to end this now, but I want to upload to GitHub because I've made a change, right? So I'm going to stop my server here for a second because it's killing me. and I'm on the wrong side, of course. I'm going to stop my server, I said, because it's killing me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Visual Studio Code. I see that there's some changes here. This is the GitHub integration. I'm going to add all these changes to the staging area. These are the changes that I made, right? And then once they've been added to my staging area, right? These are stage changes. I can say added click me button. Now, this is not exciting stuff again, but these are little components I'm giving you, right? With a click me button and a label, you've almost got a user interface, right? You can position stuff on the screen to make your menu, right? Now, give it a second. And what I want to do is I want to push to GitHub. So after this is done, let me recap what I've done today with on the tech side, right? We've added TypeScript support. And I've talked about how TypeScript is a superscript of JavaScript that makes JavaScript easier, right? And I can convert from TypeScript to JavaScript, which makes it fully compatible across any browser on the internet. That's the first thing I've done. It also gives me the other really cool thing. It gives me code hinting. So not just functionality, but really cool code hinting for any modern JavaScript library on the web, which is awesome. That means if you don't know the library, with a few clicks, I can infer or intuit what the next command is going to be without making errors. It prevents errors way ahead of time. It helps my debugging happen faster, right? And then we've talked about GitHub again and how I'm using GitHub as I develop my code, okay? Any questions that we have right now? I'm going to end for the day. It's time to go, right? Guys, thank you so much. Please, by the end of today, if you haven't had a chance to do it already, please put up your schedules for your teams. And again, if you need me, I will stay after class if you have any questions.